I really liked the analogy that a brother Alex gave us this morning in the Sabbath school. Do you remember? The line, right? Imagine your life in a line, and you have your point, starting point, you have your ending point. It's simple, right? God has a goal for your life, and we are always deciding which track to take, right? Instead of following God's plan, what happens? We do ours. We go up and down, we go backwards, we go forward, we try to do our best, but it never works. How would that work then? This plan that God has set for our lives, right? He has a goal in mind, and we have to reach this point. And the goal is salvation. The goal is heaven. How do we know, or how can we trust that we are walking in the right path, or that this is the best for us? How can we trust that even through many obstacles, that is God's plan? And the answer for this we will find in our study. The answer for this is prayer. We're going to study something that has touched my heart throughout this week. And when we talk or when we study about prayer, we know that something is coming in your direction, right? When we study about prayer, we know that something is coming. We don't know, but something is going to tell us straight and forward what we are lacking, what we are missing. This is what happened to me this week. It's not that I don't pray. No, I do pray. It's not that I pray rarely. No, I pray regularly. But it's something that I've been struggling with. Not that I'm struggling with prayers, but to kind of having this personal and so deep relation to God, that if I say that will happen, and if that is God's will happen. To have this stronger relationship with God is what He wants for us, as it was in heaven. In Eden. He was talking with us face to face, and we lost this. I perceived then that in order for me to overcome my own battles, I have to let Jesus fight for me. And He only does that when I am in prayer, when I surrender the battle into His hands. I want to start, the very first thing I want you to note is what Sister White says in the book Prayer. Says that it is a wonderful thing that we can pray effectually. That us, human beings, unworthy, erring mortals possess to the power of offering their request to God. Feeble, sinful man has the privilege of speaking to his Maker. We may utter words that reach the throne of the monarch of the universe. We may speak with Jesus as we walk by the way, and He says, I am at thy right hand. We may commune with God in our hearts. We may walk in companionship with Christ. When engaged in our daily labor, we may breathe out our heart's desire, inaudible to any human here. But that word cannot die away into silence, nor can it be lost. Nothing can drown the soul's desire. It rises above the din of the street, above the noise of machinery. It is God to whom we are speaking, and our prayer is heard. Ask then, ask, and ye shall receive. Ask for humility, wisdom, courage, increase of faith. To every sincere prayer an answer will come. It may not come just as you desire, or at the time you look for it. but it will come in the way and at the time that will best meet your need. The prayer you offer in loneliness, in weariness, in trial, God answers. Not always according to our expectations, but always for your good. Are you getting what God is telling us? Are you understanding what God is trying to teach us this morning? Answers will come. Sometimes you'll not like them. Sometimes they will be against your own will. But they will come. But they will come. Do we need anything else? Is that not clear enough for us to understand that the prayers that we offer or the moments that we spend with Christ can be in loneliness, in weariness, in trial, will be moments that God will answer us. The tears you cry in anguish of fear or fear, He will answer. And He answers. And He answers again and over and over and over again. We could stop here. But actually, we cannot stop here. This was only the very first words, and we already can finish the sermon and go back home and meditate in this. But we cannot finish, because I still have more 125 verses to preach. So bear with me. I'm pretty much sure we will finish before sunset. Okay? This is not working. Let me see. So, when we open our Bibles, the very first thing we see talking about prayer is the hypocrisy that we were talking the other day. Right? Last week we talked about the Jews' hypocrisy. Let's open our Bibles in Matthew chapter 6. And keep your finger in Matthew chapter 6, or keep one of these things that you also have, that you don't have to be turning the page and coming back, okay? Matthew chapter 6. The very first thing that Jesus is saying here is he is referring to the Jewish hypocrisy. And he says, "Take heed that you do not your alms before men, to be seen of them. Otherwise, you have no reward of your Father which is in heaven." What does it mean? What is Jesus saying? There's a very good example that was also recorded in Matthew. Matthew chapter 23, verse 5. It says, All their works they do for to be seen of men. They make broad their phylacteries and enlarge the borders of their garment. I think you have to kind of do the battery. And what is Jesus saying? Okay, their work they do for what? For what reason? To show. And they make broad their phylacteries. Do you know what a phylactery is? Do you know what this is? Phylacteries? In Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 8, God gave a commandment for them to keep the law of God in their hands, right? In their right hand, and also in their mind. And they took it literally, right? And they created the tefillin. It's a little box like this. They are box that contains the scrolls, the Torah. Okay? They are usually made out of black leather. And it always comes in pairs. If you buy a tefillin, it will always come in pairs. 2. One for your head, one for your hands. And this is how they use. Oh, thank you. This is how they use. You see the kid? He's having the one here and one in the hand. But this is not the focus. He's giving a very good example. The word tefillin or the verb is referring to prayer. So this is how they use. Okay, remember the verse? They make broad their phylacteries. They make large. They make big. And continues, talking about the borders of their garment. What does it mean? It's the fringes from a Jewish clothing. Okay, God in Numbers 15 asked the people to make blue, the ribbon of blue, remember? In their clothes. And they did it, right? There where they pray, there where is a thing attached to the four corners of a Jewish man's garment in obedience to what God had commanded. So the verse is clear, right? What they were doing. What was the reason they were praying for? To show themselves. Well, Jesus is not condemning the use of certain articles. What Jesus is saying is that they had lost the true side of holiness. Or they lost sight of the true worship. Their intent was not primarily to honor God. It was to get credit from other men for being extra religious and good. They had lost the sight of true worshiping. What would be the correct way to worship and pray then? What do you think? What would be the correct form of worship? The disciples wanted to know this. They want to know this. And in Luke, both in Luke and in Matthew, they record this event. Although Matthew is more precise in details than Luke, Matthew gives a whole more context than Luke, showing the Jews' hypocrisy and their lack of religion. But Luke is simple. Luke 11:1. Jesus was praying in a certain place. When he finished, one of his disciples said to him, "Lord, teach us how to pray," as John taught his disciples. The life of Jesus was a life of continuous communion with God. Many hours were spent in prayer and devotion. The disciples of Jesus saw that was the key of a clear understanding of God's will. Christ only overcame because of his personal connection with God. The disciples saw, through Jesus' example, that prayer changes lives, and they want to experience the same. When that happened, Luke only recorded what he found the most important or interesting for his story, and he jumps straight to the Lord's Prayer. So Luke records this, the disciples asking Jesus to teach them, and the very next thing is the Lord's Prayer. We will get there, but not today. However, Matthew gives a whole bunch of details. I was curious. I'm pretty much sure you're curious. We are all curious, right? We want to know what happened. We want to grasp the very little moments. Which historian does not like history? Right? Let's see how Matthew records the same event. Let's go back to Matthew chapter 6. Matthew chapter 6 is starting on verse 5. We will read it all, and we will go back to missionary school and study it. Okay? "When thou prayest, thou shalt not be as the hypocrites are, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and in the corners of the street, that they may be seen of men. Verily I say unto you, they have their reward." And verse 6, "But thou, when thou prayest, enter into thy closet, and when thou hast shut thy door, pray to thy Father which is in secret, and thy Father which sitteth in secret shall reward thee openly. But when ye pray, use not vain repetition, as the heathen do, for they think that they shall be heard for their much speaking. Be not ye therefore like unto them, for your Father knoweth what things ye have heard, you have need of, before ye ask him." Here we have a couple lessons to learn, and we have to start them partially through context, history, and reasoning. So the very first thing that Jesus says is not as the hypocrites, right? Thou shalt not be as the hypocrites are. What is Jesus saying here? It is not what he just mentioned in Matthew 23. They long to fleens and fringes. Them praying and with things in their minds, in their hands. The best example of what Jesus is saying here, of their hypocrisy and prayer and worship, is found in Luke chapter 18, verse 9 and 14. Let's go to Luke chapter 18, verse 9 and 14 to 14. Here you have the context of the two worshippers. Okay? Luke 18, 9 to 14. And says, "And he spake this parable unto certain which trusted in themselves that they were righteous." You can follow with me in the Bible, or you can just follow in the screen if you want. Jesus is talking, Jesus is giving this parable because some of them that were there trusted in themselves, trusted that they were righteous, and because of this they despised others. Two men went up into the temple to pray. The one is a Pharisee, and the other a publican. And verse 11. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself: God, I thank thee that I'm not as other men are, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even as this publican. I fast twice. I give tithes of all that I possess. Look how good I am, Lord. And the publican, standing afar off, would not lift up so much as his eyes unto heaven, but smote unto his breast, saying, God, be merciful unto me, a sinner. Be merciful unto me. And Jesus continues, I tell you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone that exalted himself shall be abased, and he that humbled himself shall be exalted. Again, why is Jesus out of nothing is teaching this parable? Among the multitude of believers, of hearers, there were some who thought they were good. Jesus had to teach them a lesson. Jesus had to give this parable. So the very first example is the Pharisee. In Christ's object lessons, Sister White gives a very interesting detailing of the Pharisee. He goes into the temple to worship, not because he feels that he is a sinner in need of pardon. He goes there not because he feels his sin or his sinful life, but because he thinks himself righteous and hopes to win commendation. His worship he regards as an act of merit, then will recommend him to God. At the same time, it will give the people a high opinion of his piety. He hopes to secure favor with God and man. His worship is prompted by self-interest. And continues. He is full of self-praise. He looks it. He walks it. He prays it. And look what is interesting. This is what his mind is thinking. Hey, get out. Don't be close to me. Come not near to me, for I am holier than you. And he stands and prays with himself, self-satisfied. He thinks that God and man regard him with the same complacency. And as the Pharisee judges himself by other men, he judges other men by himself. His righteousness is estimated by theirs. And the worse they got, or the worse they are, more righteous by contrast he appears. He goes to his house, he goes down to his house destitute of the divine blessing. I didn't write this. And says, the religion of the Pharisee does not touch the soul. He's not seeking to be like God. He is satisfied with a religion that has to do only with outward life. Now, how is the publican? Is that him? Look his condition. Look at his prayer. Both of them went to the temple to worship. Not only they two, but more people already were traveling to the temple. When you picture in your mind the temple, you cannot see only the publican and the Pharisee. Many people were there. It was common for them to go to the temple and devote their lives. Right? But what happens? He doesn't feel even worthy to be among them. He stands afar off. He would not lift up so much as his eye unto heaven, but smote unto his breast in bitter anguish and self-abhorrence. He felt that he had transgressed against God, that he was sinful and polluted. And continues. He knew that he had no merit to commend him to God. And in utter self-despair he cried, God, be merciful unto me. What was he looking for? What was he looking for? To be seen by others? No. He was asking, he was pleading for the mercy of God. And he was blessed. What is Jesus saying to us? Jesus is telling us that the one who recognizes his righteousness, his unworthiness, his sin before God, and humble himself in the very presence of the judge of the universe shall be forgiven, shall be blessed with the assurance of God's grace, shall receive the answer that for so long have searched. Matthew 7 says, ask and it shall be given to you. Seek and you shall find. Knock and it shall be opened to you. Is not what he said? We think that this is the end. We think this is the only thing you have to do. We think that it is simply ask whatever we want, whenever we want, however we want, and it shall be given unto us. It is not it? It is not what it's saying? No. We don't know how to ask. When we pray, we throw off words that we don't understand what we are saying. Our words are corrupt, deceitful. No matter how much we try, we will never be able to purify our words. We are sinful. And out of our heart comes the words. If we are filled with sorrow, grief, pain, if you want to kill somebody, that is what we will talk every time. But look what the Desire of Ages says. Every sincere prayer is heard in heaven. It may be not fluently expressed, but if we are praying, it will ascend to the sanctuary where Jesus ministers, and he will present it through his blood. He will purify our prayers. But there is something that we have to do if you want to have our prayers answered. We have to know how to ask. We have to know how to pray. So in Matthew, let's go back to Matthew chapter 6. Now let's read verse 6. Thou, when thou prayest, enter into thy closet, and when thou hast shut thy door, pray to the Father which is in secret, and thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly. Jesus is showing us how to pray. He's not only giving us words to say during the prayer. Later on in the Lord's Prayer, He will teach us the words, but now He's teaching us how we should behave. He counsels us to seek a quiet place, away from crowds, away from the messiness of this world. A place where only you and He are, where He can talk with you and you can listen to His voice. In the secret place of prayer, where no eye but God's can see, no ear but His can hear, we may pour out our most hidden desires and longings to the Father of infinite pity. He never fails to answer the cry of human needs, and this will speak to our hearts. Is that not beautiful? Is it not comforting? Jesus wants a special place in your house. He wants you to have a war room. The war room is where you fight your battles. There is where you open your heart to the only one who can win for you. Instead of wasting time fighting with your husband, fighting with your wife, fighting with your family, fighting with anyone else who annoys you, enters into your closet, shut the door, and pray to your Father who is in secret. And this is a work that only you can do. Nobody else can do that for you. But what about the intercessory prayer? There's nothing wrong of somebody praying for you or you praying for somebody. There's nothing wrong on somebody praying for what you're facing. Actually, many of the victories, of my victories, were because of caring, loving people who were praying for me. And many of my victories came when I forgot my own pain and started praying for others. Even Jesus himself asked for prayers. Do you remember him in the garden? He asked for prayers so that he would be able to overcome Satan. He was begging the disciples, please pray for me. While you're sleeping, pray for me. Then, the intercessory prayer is necessary for our soul. Is that what we most need? But it cannot be a substitute. Oh, okay. Sister Dan is praying for me. I don't have to pray. I'm fine. Right? Sister Victoria is praying for me. Joe is praying for me. The whole church is praying for me. I'll just sit and I know God will answer me. No. Can you go and talk to somebody? Hey, I'm kind of tired today. Could you go there and pray for me? Hey, this week has been so crazy. Could you go there and go and do my heart scan? I'm feeling that I'm not well. My heart is not well, but go there, Brother Kerry, and take the heart scan. This is the same. When you pray for somebody, you're praying for them, but it cannot be a substitute. It cannot be a substitute for your soul. It is your responsibility to talk with God. It is your privilege to talk with Him. And it is your opportunity to fight your battle. Nobody else can do that for you. And many times when we pray, we will encounter intruders. Right? Every week we have a special day to intercede for one another. That day, or our prayer meetings, are essential for the health of church body. Our prayer meetings were designed to be a boost into our spiritual faith, so that we could be able to finish the week with enough strength. The prayer meetings are the little extra that we receive from God to defeat Satan's work. However, many times this purpose has not been achieved. And do you know why? Reformers don't gossip. Did you know this? Reformers don't gossip. Reformers ask for prayer requests. Christians don't gossip. They ask for prayer requests. I'd like to ask prayer requests for Joe Jr. Because he's facing this, he's facing this, he's facing this, he's facing this, and will you open his life? I'd like to ask prayers for that sister. Oh, she's suffering so much. Have you heard what happened to her? Wow. This is our prayer meetings. Could you share more details so that I can pray to God? That is funny, isn't it? What was designed to be a boost in our system, an energizing meeting becomes an exhausting and embarrassing investigation of your life. Who else would like to share their struggles if they know it will be spread everywhere? Who would be able or who would be comfortable asking for prayer requests in such a prayer meeting? You have the intruders. When you don't have the intruders, you have the super intruders. No one needs to know what you're passing through. No one knows you better than God Himself. Nor do you know yourself better than He does. Then He counsels us to have a private and deep talking with Him. He understands you. This private talk will be a recharging of your spiritual batteries. Then, no one has the right to put their fork into your spiritual socket. Nobody. No one has to be between you and God. And if they are, they will start doubting your faith. They don't have the same faith as you do. They don't understand your relationship with God. And because of this, they think you're getting too far. They think you're just proving God. Oh, actually, they think your faith is crazy, presumptuous, arrogant, when in fact you are simply trying to hear God's voice. When in fact you are just proving God, taking Him at His word and trusting His promises. That is the reason why God encourages to fight our battles in secret. What does He say? Enter in your closet, shut your door, and pray to your Father who is in secret. Does it stop there? No. It continues. The verse continues. And He will reward you openly. When you pray in secret, God does not just answer in secret. Well, sometimes He does answer in secret. But in most cases, God wants to show to the whole world the wonderful miracles He performed in your life. In many cases, God wants to show to those who doubt you, who doubt Him, that He is more powerful than your unbelief, their unbelief. He wants to prove that a genuine faith mixed with a fervent prayer will make you a victor. Will make you a victorious. Then, not only He answers you, but He goes out shouting all over the place, taking in His hands the result what seemed to be a crazy faith, what seemed to be naivety, a toyish faith. And He knows you. Jesus continues His sermon. Let's keep reading. Matthew 6, verse 7 and 8. But when ye pray, use not vain repetitions, as the heathen do, for they think that they shall be heard for their much speaking. Be not ye therefore like unto them, for your Father knoweth what things ye have need of, before you even ask Him. Jesus doesn't waste time. He goes straight to the point. And He's saying, if you think that by your much speaking, your many words, you'll be heard, forget it. That is not prayer. This is fake worship. How many times have we been in this position? How many times were we learning fancy words to present an eloquent prayer? How many times, because of a mechanic prayer, did we get loose in our words? Lord, bless my sins and forgive my blessings. Right? These are our words. It is silly, right? But it happens. This is not what Jesus is looking for. This type of worship is not the one which will take you home. The Samaritan woman understood this, but she was kind of confused. We studied this in the lesson today. She was actually trying to avoid talking about her situationship. But she asked, "Sir, I see you are a prophet. Our father worshipped in this mountain, and he said that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship." What does Jesus answer? "Woman, believe me, the hour cometh when ye shall neither in this mountain nor yet at Jerusalem worship the Father. But the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshippers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father seeks such to worship him." In the next verses, we see what was the need of that woman. She wanted someone who could relieve her pain. She needed rest from wrestling. She was fighting too much, and she was not gaining any victory. She needed a victory, even if it was a small victory. She did not have a war room, but she went to the fountain of life. The woman left her water pot and went her way into the city and said to the man, "Come, see a man which told me all things that I ever did. It is not this the Christ?" Then they went out of the city and came unto him. He knows what you need before you even ask him. And he cares for you. Though, I want to conclude with this. After Solomon had dedicated the temple, God appears to him in a dream. And he says to Solomon, "I have heard thy prayer, and I have chosen this place to myself for an house of sacrifice. If I should have heaven, that there be no rain, or if I command the locusts to devour the land, or if I send pestilence among thy people." He's saying, "I'm able to. If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray, and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven, and I will forgive their sins, and I will heal their land." And verse 15 and 16 from 2 Chronicles. "Mine eyes shall be opened, and my ears attend unto the prayer that is made in this place. For now I have chosen and sanctified this house, that my name may be there forever. And mine eyes and mine heart shall be there perpetually." I invite you now to take his words, to hold on to his promises. Open your heart to Jesus. Open your house to. As Solomon dedicated the temple, consecrate your home to Jesus. Make room in the chaos of your life for him to fight your battles. Open up a space in your home. Have your war room. And consecrate that to your personal battles with God. And do you want to know what his answer will be? If you consecrate, if you make a place for Jesus, mine eyes will be open. My ears will be attentive to the prayers offered in that place. I have chosen and consecrated the temple so that my name may be there forever. My eyes and my heart will always be there. Tell Jesus everything. What you are holding back, what you are keeping it to yourself, you're not going to get anywhere. Lay open before him the secrets of your heart. For his eye searches the inmost recesses of the soul, and he reads your thoughts as an open book. Accept his gift with your whole heart. For Jesus had died that you might have the precious thing of heaven as your own. May God bless us. May we know how to pray, that when we kneel down, we may receive the things we are in need of. Don't try to make up your words. Be clear. But the most important thing is for you to have a personal space where God can talk with you. Your war room. Where you will fight your battle. Where He will fight your battles. May God bless us. Amen?